All right, so we've looked at percent, we've looked at this box method of helping us figure out when we have a value missing. Now let's look at some word problems. So our first example, we have a student who needs to answer at least 75% of the questions correctly on a 50 question exam to pass. So we want to know how many questions must the student get right. So 75 then is going to be our rate. So that's going to go in the top right. Our 100 always goes in the bottom right. And what else do we know? We know it's a 50 question exam. So here there's an of, but it's far away. This is still our base. The base is 50 because that's like the total number. We're looking for the partial amount, the amount of those questions that the student needs to get correct. Okay, so then we can set up our proportions as they've done here. So A over 50 is going to equal 75 over 100. That means you can bring this 50 over across and up the equal sign, or you can do the cross product method to get A equals 50 times 75 over 100, and then you'll get an answer of 37.5. So I guess if the questions were all or none, if you get a mark or you don't get a mark, the student needs 38 questions complete or correct so that they can pass that exam. Okay, so because you couldn't have a half question, presumably. Okay, let's look at this next one. So Simon waits tables at the All Seasons, and a family left a $45 tip on a $250 meal. So we want to know what percent of the bill did the family leave as a tip? So let's start by filling out our box here. So what do we know? The family left a $45 tip on a $250 meal. So that means our amount is $45 and our base, our total is 250. Okay, we're looking for what percent? So that's our X, and bottom right is always 100 because that's going to be out of 100. So we can set up our equivalent fractions here. 45 out of 250 equals X over 100. And now we want to move that 100 to the other side. So you can either think of that as bringing it up and across the equal sign, or you can think of it as multiplying both sides by 100. Because if you multiply both sides by 100, these hundreds will cancel out. So either way you think about it, you'll get X equals 100 times 45 over 250. And what does that give us? So 100 times 45 divided by 250 equals, I get 18. Okay, so the family left an 18% tip. Okay, take a look at this next one. Let's set up the box together. So Carrie reported an income 47,500, and of that she's paid 13,300 in taxes. We want to know what percent, so our question is what percent of her income did she pay in taxes? All right, so let's fill out this box. So we're looking for the percentage, that's going to be out of 100. She reported an income of 47,500. And of that, she paid a portion of that income in taxes. So 13,300 is our amount. And that means 47,500 is our base. So we can set up our fractions then. 13,300 divided by 47,500 equals X over 100. So now that you have your fractions set up, pause this video and see if you can solve for X. Okay, so let's solve for X now. So I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 100 because whatever I do to the right, I have to do to the left. And if I multiply the right by 100, I know those two 100s will cancel out and I'm left with just X. So X is 100 times 13,300 all over 47,500. So now we can do that calculation. And what do we get? And so I get 28. So Carrie paid 28% in taxes. Okay. All right. Take a look at these next two. Pause the video and see if you can solve those. All right, let's try these next two problems. So Jenny sells a building at 76, or a building lot, which is $76,000. And her real estate commission rate is 3%. So we want to know what commission she earns on the sale. That strikes me as a very low commission for a real estate agent, but let's go with it. So we've got a rate then of 3. So we're going to have a 3 on our top right. The 100 always goes down here. Now the 76,000, is that our amount or our base? So here we're looking for the commission she earns. That's going to be a small, or a percentage of the earnings from this building. So the 76,000 is like our total. That's the total amount. She's going to earn 3% of that amount. So that becomes our X. So when we set up our fraction, then we're going to have X over 76,000 equals 3 over 100. Okay, so I'm going to move the 76,000 to the opposite side of the equal sign, bringing it from the bottom to the top. Or in other words, I'm multiplying both sides by 76,000. And so I get X equals 3 times 76,000 over 100. And when we calculate that out, what do we get? And so I get 2,280. So she earns $2,280 on that sale. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. So a state adds a 6.5% sales tax. If you buy a used car for $1,200, what is the total you must pay? Okay, so this is actually a two-step problem. Or actually, we could do it two different ways, but we're going to do it as a two-step problem. So let's see what we have. We know the rate is 6.5%. So our 6.5 goes here. That's out of 100. We're buying a used car for $1,200. So let's make that our base. If that's our base, then this top number is going to be the amount of tax we pay. So this will be our X. So then we get X over 1,200 equals 6.5 over 100. We're going to multiply both sides by 100. Whoops, that's not going to help us, is it? Sorry. Let's look at this again. We're trying to isolate our X, which means let's multiply both sides by 1,200 so that the 1,200s cancel out and we're left with just X on the left. So these cancel, and now we have X equals, so let's do that math. We've got 6.5 times 1,200 divided by 100, and we get 78. So the amount of tax is $78. That's our tax. So this is kind of like step one. Now we were asked for the total that we had to pay. So that's going to be our 1,200 plus our tax of $78. So we're going to end up paying $1,278. So let's say I must pay $1,278. Now, if you want a different way to solve this problem as one step, there is a way you could do it. So alternatively, so maybe I'll just say or over here. Another way to think of this is our rate is going to be 106.5%. So the amount we're going to end up paying is 106.5 out of 100. That would be the total amount we're trying to pay, or going to have to pay. and our base is still 1200. So if you solve now for this X here, you'll find that it ends up equaling this $1,278. So that's another way to do that problem if you want to do it in one step.